You're the host.
Well, I got enlisted to do something, guys, I'm not very proud of. I have to cast with my father.
That's me.
Yeah. So
My father.
I'm Lynx, joined by Intero. No, should I call you Parker?
Lynx's father. Can I get that updated, please, for me? It should say Lynx's dad.
It should. Well, it should be his Twitter actually. It should say Intero, then Lynx's father.
Correct. Yeah, that should say.
But
if they can add tired to it yesterday when MESI wasn't, I said tired.
They added the parenthetical after it, right?
Father and son.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm very excited for this game today, Parker. Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because I said like 8 billion times at Atlanta, but Bliss and SSG played. It was a very big match because Bliss actually had a good shot at winning it, and then they ended up losing in overtime, getting knocked out of the event, and it didn't really go off from that.
Okay.
But this is a rematch.
It is.
Of that match.
Of your boy Ashen.
Of my boy Ashen, but also my boy's Bliss, because while I'm not from Australia, I feel a kinship to these underdogs.
Why is that? Let's dissect this. Why do you feel a kinship to an Australian team?
Because they could have beat Wolves and unfortunately choked a little bit, but they could have beat SSG and unfortunately choked a little bit. But in a time when we were really struggling to find champions from regions like Southeast Asia or Oceania, Bliss and other teams, of course, like Fury and Bleed, really proved that they could maybe not make it to Phase 2, but bring in a performance that we didn't quite expect and was honestly pretty good. And look, they're not in last.
That's true. If you watch the matchup just a little bit earlier, Wolves, I believe the official Twitter account said, Wolves run Group B.
I mean,
at this current point,
I guess.
I mean, look at the round differential. Look at the numbers right now. The numbers are numbering. Wolves do look like the best team, but obviously they played one game over these other squads. FaZe Clan is not in action today. They're actually at the buffet.
They are.
For lunch. They were. They were eating up, just as Spacestation or Bliss will be eating it up. Here are the maps. Oregon, Border, and Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse has been the most picked map so far. And a fun stat that I don't know if the other people have been talking about on the broadcasts. We are in a very defender-sided state of this game. Defense wins about 70% of all rounds at the moment, and Clubhouse is leading the way. 68% of all rounds played on Clubhouse as of the end of yesterday broke in favor of the defenders, and that's with Tubarão not even being used in all of those matches, which is insane to me.
I do think if that's not even...
Well, that's a relief.
And even if you're not including, if Tubarão isn't used in all those matchups, this is one of Tubarão's best maps. You have two extremely important external walls, Jacuzzi and Platwall, that if you're attacking that top floor are often both focal points for the attack strategy, whether in the early round or the late round. But that's map 3.
We might not even need it.
We might not even need it,
especially 2-0 them.
Well, with SSG beating FaZe Clan yesterday 2-0, I was going into this game before the tournament started like, wow, this could not only decide Bliss being above maybe a team like D+ Kia or SSG, depending on how they performed, but they could redeem themselves from their narrow loss at Atlanta. And then SSG beat FaZe Clan yesterday, and now I am very, very high on SSG, and not less high on Bliss, but man, with that win yesterday, SSG are looking quite good going into this matchup.
Honestly, all of North America is doing quite well. I want to take a second just to note what's going on in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen in the chat. It says, your stash is gone, old man. Wedables and Forrest have a bet that whoever loses shaves off the duster. Duster, of course, is slang for mustache.
I actually didn't know that. I did not know that.
Well, now you do.
There was
also another reference the other day that you didn't know, and I'm not going to say that on a broadcast.
Okay. If you guys also don't know, I have lost a bet with Forrest about SSG, because at Atlanta, I bet they wouldn't make main stage, and then they did.
And then what happened?
I had to buzz my head. But it actually revealed that I kind of liked the shorter, more even look.
Nope.
And so I've stuck with it.
Nope.
Okay.
It's not good.
All right, sounds good.
You shouldn't. As somebody who shaved his head, let me tell you. Well, actually, technically, Sam helped shave my head that year. It's a terrible look for me. Almost perfect Skinnergy.
Attackers need to locate.
Oda was the only one that missed it. Operator bans! SSG banned out a Monty. Shield operators tend to be quite strong on Oregon, specifically on the mid and bottom floors. You don't necessarily see shields on the top floor all that commonly. This part right here of the map, referred to as Blue and Elbow, is where shield operators tend to have the greatest value. You saw it yesterday in the G2 matchup, where you just run a blitz on in, or maybe it was 2 days ago in the G2 matchup, all the days blur together, where you just run a blitz on in. Monty obviously is very strong for that reason. Ying is the most banned attacking operator across all regions over like the last year, so that's not really much of a surprise there. And then we talk about these nuisance ops on defense. Azami, Fenrir, Baro, Solus. You can even start adding things like Legion and Lamai and Valkyrie to that if you want. Now, defenders are in a very good spot when it comes to flexibility, Carter, so you're going to ban a Solus, you're going to ban a Fenrir, as you see on your screen, but that means that Azami is going to be up. That means that you're going to see Valkyrie on this map. That means you're going to see Lamai, you're going to see Aruni, you're going to see Legion. In this particular instance, you don't see a lot of those operators down below, so right now it's only a Legion of those nuisance ops.
Instead, you have Sejion and Brendo chilling out on the second floor alongside Official Guy in between inside of showers. If you're going to see a roam setup, those three are pretty standard, but Oda all the way on that top floor. So an extremely, extremely extended roam setup for Bliss at the start. Now, of course, this is a little risky because if you have an attacking team that tends to go quickly as SSG, if they're known for anything, speed and excitement is often the name of the game. We'll start with the opening pick, but still, the consolidated setup works for Bliss. They traded out very quickly, and maybe not as much of a nuisance off as the defense, but Grim has certainly become a lot more powerful recently, and him falling is great, but SSG, by almost the midpoint of the round, come away with the man advantage, and Bliss are forced to rotate back.
I mean, clearing out the roam here at a minute and a half, just a little bit over a minute and a half, and more importantly, clearing out the roam without allowing them to retreat back to the site is excellent, but this is something a bit unorthodox. Fisho Guy taking aggression to the max on those freezer stairs. I think it confronts Fultz in a way that he wasn't expecting.
Official Guy just flanking up Freezer, able to take that completely off guard. But even in the 3v3, with how much damage has been done to Official Guy and Brendo, and the fact that the meeting hatch is open because of the nature of the roam setup, same with the Freezer hatch, I believe, as well. Sure, you've wasted some time on the roam, but by coming away with a disadvantage, now even, but 2 hatches being open, a lot of the work that SSG would otherwise need to do has already been done by the very nature of the roam setup.
It's a nice vibe that comes with whether or not you want to bring one hard breacher or double up on those can openers. As you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, Spacestation opted to bring a Maverick as well as a Hibana for conventional hard destruction. And then obviously you bring the can openers as well in the Buck and the Capitao. So they've got tons of options at their disposal to get those hatches open.
Official Guy now falling back in the 3v2. If he just joins the rest of the defense, they know it's going to be an E-box drop because of those flashes, and Brendo has not even moved from his previous kill of the round. Force now forced to crouch walk down big counter stairs. Spots one. There's 3 different players who can take these fights and get the trade if he finds one. One indeed goes down. Brendo falls, but nobody peeks just yet. Wettables pushes a little further up inside of E-box. So still good potential for a trades, and both players with shotguns and secondary SMGs easily deal with this. He sprints into E-box and doesn't even know Wettables is there. The roam might not have gone as well as Bliss would have liked, but by the end of the round, firmly in a good position to win it.
Yeah, I mean, the final 40 seconds of that round was largely just on face-checking angles. And that's because when you've got a 3v3 going on and you know that there's a couple conventional spots for you to hold on Oregon, then you might as well just go for it. I mean, you don't really have the time or the wherewithal, I think, to get those drones out. It's also possible that they were just simply out of drones. You look at the screen right now, halfway through the round, there's only 3 drones present when this final push came in. There was 2 left. One of which was Forrest. He's not exactly going to drone himself in a 1v3 when the moment you go on drone, you're going to get collapsed upon. He knew somebody was over towards Pillar. He knew there was somebody playing inside sight. So you've got at least 2 of those marked down. The last is, where are they? Are they playing Elbow? Are they playing Freezer? Might they still even be roaming? Because there could be a potential late retake up laundry stairs. When you're looking at a 40-second timer in the round and you've only got a single drone in your pocket, you're just going to have to fly blind. Ultimately, it doesn't end up working out for Space Station.
And if low drone economy is going to be an issue, it'll really be an issue against Bliss. Even though they lost the game yesterday 2-0 at the fairly close margins on both maps, one of the biggest strengths Bliss had against Wolves was very solid trades, not even necessarily in the early round, because they were consistently getting the opening pick, but in the late round, when Wolves were going into an execute, even if Bliss had a even man count, a 3v3, they were able to hold positions and play off their team's contact and work the man advantage down in their favor while also combining it with plays similar to what Fisher Guy did in the last round, making an individual play to crouch walk up the stairs on defense or find a gap on the attack to get that advantage back, then join the rest of the team and play those trades. So if they're able to shoot a lot of drones from SSG, even without a Solus on the board, maybe get an advantage and then fall back and play close together. They were able to do it quite well yesterday against a hugely impactful Mowgli performance, one of the biggest players in this tournament who can take over a game, and if the trades were still intact then, SSG will need to work quite hard to beat that.
Yeah, I like a team like Bliss coming out of the gates swinging, even though outside of what they did on Freezer Stairs, I didn't really see anything from them that was really that unorthodox or out of the norm for a default Oregon basement pull. Talked about those nuisance ops when the operator bans came in, and Azami obviously has great prevalence on just about every single map in the competition, but you don't see her a lot downstairs. Now it's more common that you're going to see her on the first floor and the top floor, as immediately Bliss brings her out to go upstairs. And if you look at the explosives that are available for SSG, they've got 2 nades in the hands of the Nook, and that's it. So outside of just confronting the Kiba barriers and meleeing them, you're not going to have anything long range like an Ashe or a Zofia to be able to take them out.
Take a look at the benefit of this Solus ban, though. Even though it's from Bliss, that was the first drone shot from SSG with over half the round to go. Far different than the previous round. They've had full intel at their disposal. Maybe to inform plays like this from Hot and Cold. There you go, Z-Ping on the Azami, playing inside of Armory Forest also earlier. Looking over into Z, where Brendo was playing on top Freezer. He rips away the floorboards beneath Sejion. He's aware that somebody might push up Armory, but peeks the angle, un-ADS'd, and Brendo with that flank times it perfectly once SSG commit to the push up main stairs to get 2 kills and give Bliss that advantage. But J9O, watching down below, is able to bring it back to a 3v3. Edibles getting very aggressive upstairs in dorms. This is where we need to see a gunfight go Bliss's way if they want to win, and the exact opposite happens. Players caught rotating, running around inside of the site. Fisho Guy with that shotgun. Just like last round, 3 kills so far with a shotgun. Now he's got to find the rest in order to clutch this one out. J9O down below and Ashen outside of the dorm's window. This is actually quite a winnable round for Fisho Guy, with J9O still finding intel down below. He has a 1v1 with Ashen on that window. J9O is going to need to cover dorms and use these Grims to allow Ashen to push on in. Will Fisher Guy take the fight? He's got the intel, downs him. Now with Ashen vaulting on in, the flashbang goes off. Fisher Guy dodges it with the shotgun 1v2. 2 rounds in a row for Bliss. And an excellent momentum booster thanks to Fisho Guy.
And if that wasn't the ending of the round, I was going to lead off with the point about how SSG pushed to get those 3 mid-round kills basically all at the same time. First, they start downstairs. J9O walks in. He immediately sees his teammate lose the fight, so where does he go? He goes into security, waits for the flank to go through, kills Brendo. Immediately, Wetables is on the window, and then SSG swings that as well for information. Now imagine that Bliss's comms were a complete and utter nightmare at that point in time. But then, SSG push staggered. They don't hop through vault, they don't vault through that big window, they don't go up white stairs at roughly the same time, and it ultimately ends up being a position where, time and time again, at dorms section of this map, if you're defending it with a shotgun, you can do basically like a rodeo around the door, around the bomb chassis, around the dorms, and just 1 pump, 2 pump, and that's it, and they're dead. Now, obviously, if you have the SMG-11 in hand, you can engage on white stairs, as we saw, and then just, they're going to pressure you, because there was only 10 seconds left or so in the round. SSG looked quite well coordinated through the mid-round, but then at the very final second, when they needed that coordination and to push in synchronization the most, they weren't able to do it. This is... You know Ashen well enough to know that. He's probably got something to say about that.
Yeah. Ashen, of course, the youngest, but by far and away the loudest player on SSG on any given Sunday. And he shuts down a spawn peak like that with ease. Yeah, he's going to be very happy about that. Also, the second highest performer for Bliss these past couple rounds. Fisher Guy might have clutched that 1v2, but the only reason Bliss were even in a position to start winning that round was because of that 2-piece flank from Brendo over by Freezer Stairs. So losing his impact, while his Valkyrie cams might persist, he has some decent game sense, and losing that X factor on the roam will be a little worrisome. You still have Fisher Guy upstairs, though. He's the only one actually off-site or far away from it on the second floor for Bliss. He is playing that dorms position with that M59. As you called it, the rodeo. I'd call it the best bomb site or rooms for shotguns in the game, or at least close to it.
Well, I mean, so much of the site is going in your favor, right? You've got the panels in the attic, but at that point, you know nobody's there, so you can easily square up to it and take an engagement either through the soft wall, which, as we noted, SSG didn't have soft destruction to cut through at that point because they couldn't deal with the Kiva barriers earlier. So what are you going to do? You're going to get pushed from the same doorway. And at that point, a shotgun is easily going to fell whatever opponent is on the other side of it. So Bliss not really breaking much of a sweat here. Obviously, Bliss starting on defense is excellent. This is a defender-sided map. Though Oregon's numbers, the last I saw, were actually quite even given the state of this map. So obviously, if you're SSG, you expect Bliss to take 3, maybe 4 rounds, do the same, and hopefully win in overtime. We're starting to see some games where a single attacking round victory is enough for you to win, which is absurd at this point in time, but that's what happens when the defense is as strong as they are.
Fisher guy with a very cheeky rotation back down into the bottom white hallway. 2 minutes in, and aside from that kill on Brendo, punished for the spawn peek, SSG has barely made any progress. Hot and Cold's been an addict since time immemorial, but is making good progress nonetheless, especially now that Fisher guy has dropped down. Hot and Cold can open up that meeting hatch. It's still unclear where the execute was coming from. We've seen SSG give a couple looks over to the meeting side, the kitchen side, and the cafeteria side, everywhere, and as players start crouch walking down into site or in the areas around it, Bliss are just fighting them. Ashen does spot one running away, but very quick flick puts him down to around half HP. They know the Capitao is there, now compounded by the fact that the Legion sound cue gives away his position, moving up the Z hallway. The 3v3 for Bliss to fight their way out of, and we saw how good those trades were against Wolves yesterday. Fisher guy gets this one, it'll give them the advantage. 1 pump, 2, down goes Ashen. 2v1 now as J9O in the site with the diffusers, put to 1 HP. Fisher guy with a dominant performance on these anchor ops so far, in 3 rounds in a row.
He's 8-0, by the way. So 8-0 for Fisher guy. Quite the early start for him. Long faces on the bench of Space Station. It doesn't surprise me whatsoever that they've used their time out. Now, this is a tough nut to crack for them because usually if you're going to win a bomb site on Oregon, it's going to be that tertiary bomb site, at least if you're going to win it on attack. But SSG on that round, they get a freebie. They get the very first pick. You've got a 5v4. Put pressure on anybody who's off-site. Clear out above you. Take control of attic. Take control of dorms. Get up there. Back in the olden days, you know, you'd see a Maverick go through that attic wall, pressure forward, then you'd put either a buck or a sledge up there and start raining hell down upon kitchen. Isolate the players in kitchen. Force them back into meeting. Take kitchen or take an engagement towards meeting. But where was SSG for all of that? It was a very linear execute from them. They went straight for the site on the first floor. And I gotta question it. If they're droning through these 3 rounds, go all the way back to that very first laundry supply room take, I really don't see SSG gaining a lot of information off of this. And again, only 2 drones left towards the end of it that are in play. Like, you're losing your drones. They're getting shot. You're not using them. You're not gaining information optimally. And I can't even point to Bliss stopping them. It's not like they're bringing a mute Mozzie constantly that's being used to deny you information. So if you're SSG, how do you fix this? You're going to go back to the bomb site where laundry supply room, you expect the defense to win. You got to change things up if you're Space Station. So far, they like their lineup, and they haven't bothered to swap anything out. Oh.
I fully expected this.
Yeah, Forest on a shield is jelly on peanut butter.
There are just a few teams that when you see them take attack timeout and they're down 0-3 or 0-4, just to bring back maybe some momentum or some energy or hell, just to compensate for some flaws sometimes. If they have a shield player, they'll put him on blitz. And in this particular case, I think it's perfectly apt. Because you mentioned that Oregon, while it's still defender-sided, is not nearly as defender-sided as it once was. And I think a lot of teams have figured out cheeky ways or cheeky ops to give themselves an advantage on attacking bomb sites, specifically like basement. I would say Blitz and Grim are 2 of the biggest operators in my mind that if you're struggling to attack basement, you can bring and run a strategy and have success with. Grim, if you're attacking freezer laundry, can basically cover the entirety of the front of the bomb site in the freezer hallway with bees and stop the defense from pushing. Or if you want to run the blitz like Force is doing right now, you could run it up elbow, or just for more broader application, just sprint through the building, push enemies back that you find, and create space behind you that your teammate can fill. So, Forces appear to go for the latter, and, well, thankfully for them, I suppose, much less roam presence from Bliss this go-around.
Yeah, I mean, if you droned out blue, though, you'd see that the only player from the side of Bliss that was even close was Wettables. Just watching it from essentially pillar, that was it. Yeah, right there with that deployable shield. Look on the side of SSG, though. Again, no explosives being brought. Unless there's a Gone 6 buried in their lineup, you have no way to tackle that. How many rounds are we going to see a lack of explosives from Space Station? It kind of puzzles me.
And I think maybe part of that is they bring Mavs so much, maybe they're really worried about the Tubarão, which this is the first time he's brought, but Flores, as you mentioned, explosives, Flores is a very common pick in general, but on this bomb site in particular, nades might not be what they once were, but having some Rotero drones to destroy those shields is quite important.
There are few sites where you get as much value out of a Flores as laundry supplies. There isn't. You can take out any Goyo shields you might find. You can take out any observation blockers. You can take out the ADSs. You can clear out blue relatively effectively. You could force people back in B. You can then turn around and use it on freezer to open up the wall if it's a soft wall. There's so many different ways that a Flores really helps here. And he's not banned. I mean, there's a reason why you see Flores bans here. I really do think this lineup, in terms of objectives, is suboptimal for SSG.
And when you see this lineup, they inevitably rotate to the bunker push. That when you have a blitz usually happens, but what are these mistakes? They know that at least one player is close, likely two, because you see that deployable shield, and holding elbow is one of, if not the most common positions to hold on basement. Boris goes down to a C4 because Bliss anticipate that somebody's going to be out there once Fultz makes noise, and then when he falls off, somebody rotates up close to peak. That's a good heads-up play by Bliss, but again, this problem can be avoided if the utility crew is more efficient and if the coordination was much better. Sejion just places a Zoto canister at the door, so they're much, much slower when they push in, and the round's pretty much over at this point. Bliss are peeking, honestly, when they maybe don't even need to. They could just hold these angles and wait, and Sejion is so confident he prone peeks the door to end round 4 up 4-0 in man count. This game is not even close.
No, it's not. And here's the funny thing about an operator like Tubarão.
It's Portuguese.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know my own lore. Thank you so much for telling me. Did you know that Oregon, the map, is in America?
I just wanted to help. You don't smile anymore.
When you have an operator like Maverick come onto the scene many, many years ago, Fabian actually went on an interview and basically said, it's not whether you bring him or not, it's that you always have to plan for him being there. In a lot of ways, we refer to this on cast as phantom presence or phantom pressure. And now, obviously, with attackers, you can completely tailor your lineup. You don't know what's coming if you're a defender. As defenders, you don't have the opportunity to change things. If SSG droned out a Tubarão, then you have to play as if he is actively going to stop all of your hard breach. So before you can even go about doing the usual hard breach, you got to find ways to try to sidestep him. So if people are a little confused about, well, in that particular round, Tubarão wasn't even really that much of a factor.
Not till the last 15 seconds.
Exactly. So people will say, well, why didn't they just do default stuff? Well, maybe it's because Space Station knew that they would be thwarted by an operator and instead tried to sidestep it in advance, just as way back in the day, teams would effectively fall off certain parts of the map that you knew a Maverick could easily cut through without you being able to defend.
SSG are just looking far, far less composed than they did in their game against FaZe yesterday. Sure, they weren't perfect. There was still some SSG antsiness that was a huge problem in Atlanta and NAL Stage 2. But they showed an ability to adapt, and instead of just falling back on cheesy strats or aggression or heads-up plays when their normal pushes weren't working, they instead tried to do something more standard, maybe pull back, play less aggressive on the attack or the defense, or try to counter-strat a little bit in the moment, come up with an on-the-fly adaptation. Right now, it's just lethargy from SSG. Split attacks, split pushes. We do have a nice adjustment that I do like. We see Fultz bringing those Rotero drones to clear that util, but most are already gone, though, and Fisho Guy's playing the mute. So when there wasn't that presence on basement, now there is to perfectly counter those Roteros. Hot and Cold does find one, though. On the Nook, he's able to cut down Brendo on this Dorm's bomb site, and Sejion currently stuck inside a Wolf, also on low HP. If there was ever a round that SSG might find a way back in, it seems like this one should be.
I mean, the funny part is that when you talk about getting first blood, SSG actually has 2 uncontested first bloods. The other 3 rounds have all been draws. So it's not like Bliss is getting an opening pick and completely thwarting SSG at the start of the round. SSG is keeping pace with them until that mid to late round, and that's when things fall apart. And again, it just comes back to intel. This is the first time that Space Station has made it past the halfway mark with more than 4 drones, which is insane to think about. They have tons of intel, as you can tell. 8 of their drones are established around the map. That is much better. And if Space Station can use that information correctly, then they can potentially, I know this might sound crazy, win a round.
Potentially, to be sure. You have some secondary hard breach to open up these walls. Bliss has done the job for them and opened up a lot of them to be soft. Hot and Cold's second kill of the round. Official guy trying to find that buck down below. Puts him to 1 HP, but of course downs him in turn. Almost catches the player going for the revive. Third kill for Hot and Cold. Oda left an unofficial 1v1. Nice shot on a J9O. But the rest of SSG is ready and waiting. First round on the board for the North American squad. Thanks to Hot and Cold, it doesn't seem that hard.
No, and I wonder what the call was there on Forrest down below. We watched him get the skeleton key down. I don't know if he'd gotten any information as to whether or not the player was downed. But he started to run towards what either looked like armory stairs or even meeting, and then pivoted, came back, and shot through the floor as maybe he heard somebody try to pick up the downed player of was I believe it was Fisher guy that got downed by the skeleton key. But Space Station were quick to the punch. They knew this, and then they immediately maneuvered over. Look at Hot and Cold was in hot pursuit, jumping in through big window. You had one player coming up armory stairs. It looked like another was over towards white stairs, and then the last player looked like they were, or one of the players that was coming up armory might have been going over towards master side. It was Space Station realizing we have the numbers, we have to push. And this goes back to what I said about that man advantage in the third round, which was on meeting. Space Station had a huge advantage. You killed the Valkyrie early. You've basically got 2 minutes and 45 seconds, up by 1. How do you not use that to your advantage? And lethargy was the word you used, and I think it fits perfectly here because it's just been such a slow take by Space Station. As much as the defense wins, we see teams be quick. We saw it today, we've seen it yesterday, we've seen it all days of competition so far, and we've seen it from Space Station. So the fact that they're having these stumbles against Bliss on their own map, despite the fact that Bliss is on the favorable side, makes me kind of worry about what happens when we go to map number 2 of Border.
Given how slow these attacks have been, you have to think about that last round. Would they have had as much success if you didn't have Hot and Cold on Nook getting 2 or 3 kills? Hot and Cold at one time being one of the best lurkers in North America. Maybe not as much anymore, but 2 years ago, you could at least make an argument given the performance he was putting up on SSG and on Mirage before that. Without those kills, maybe the round goes differently. But ironically, despite the criticism we've given SSG, and maybe should be even giving a lot more praise to Bliss than criticizing SSG, if they win the tertiary bomb site right here, they've got a 2-4 half. That's what they need. That's the minimum they should be going for. If they're able to, they maybe not fix all their mistakes, but at least get another good performance out of Hot and Cold, or another big individual performance from somebody on SSG, or just find a pick like they have right now with Oda swinging the meeting wall, hey, it could work out and it could be fine.
Yeah. Only one Tuberau through the first half, by the way, as you pointed out. It was that basement bomb site that we saw 2 rounds ago. Focus at the moment from the Space Station team is on Attic, and rightfully so. You just have to make sure you're not getting bogged down here because you hit the halfway point. Bit of a rarity that nobody has died yet. I was wrong. Edibles dies. Space Station gets another opening pick, which again is their strong suit. This is the 3rd time they'll have done it through this first half. We'll only have 1 round to show for it.
Oh, but Seiji Unknown doesn't have any kills to show for that. Sitting on laundry stairs, completely undroned. 2 players walk in front of him, and he gets none. But a Capcan trap and a TCSG still make it a 3v3. As Case goes down, official guy on the flank. Do SSG no? Fultz peeks, but doesn't get the kill. J9O with 1. He has the cross on the diffuser, spots another. Oda to 1 HP, but a toxic canister in his way. He's got to rotate up green and hit the attackers from the backside. Pushes up meeting, surely the defense knows. Oh, official guy so low, but J9O too. Going for the defuse, J9O hears it, goes for the sprint, goes for the flash. Official guy sticking, and J9O with the kill. A hectic execute between both of these teams, but SSG get the 4-2 they needed.
Sloppiness from Bliss there in the post plan, especially with 2 players stacked up in the exact same position inside of meeting. I understand that you might not have information as to where he is. Last time that the bullet came through past your head, it was J9O inside of kitchen. But at that point, you got to square up and expect to rotate, because stage is where a lot of teams are going to want to put their last player because you plan it over by split. That's just how it works. And look at this. J90 goes in, does something that most people can't do, which is control the recoil of the bearing 9, and then just wait them out. Bliss waited. They sat. They didn't bother to go finding J90 and bring the pressure to him. And, kudos to J90. He's a talented player. Everybody in this lobby is. But when you look at the history of the Space Station roster and you look at a player like J90 who's been around before, played in grand finals before, you know what he's capable of. You know that this SSG team has been very creative so far at SI. You know that they're capable of being very quick when they need to be. And J90 reads it perfectly.
I also think, in terms of SSG's creativity, we were talking about their slowness, how they weren't adapting, how they weren't changing. Look at that meeting round in comparison to their previous one. Before, again, it was slow, but Hot and Cold's over in meeting, Fultz is over in dorms, J90's over in small tower. They're all separated, nobody pushing together, and because of the lack of intel and the lack of positioning that they control, they end up pushing 1v1 and dying. That round, it is, without question, unimpeachably, a dorms clear. They are clearing out the roam on the top floor and gunning for a plant inside of Split. That is exactly what the strategy could be interpreted as and exactly what ended up happening. Players were in the right positions. They were playing off each other. It might have taken almost the entirety of the attacking half, but SSG, going into their defensive side swap, adapted when they needed to, made the right play, and fixed the mistake that had crippled them for the majority of that first half. But now they switch to the defense, and with that 4-2, they move down to basement as the logical first option, as opposed to Bliss's first outing on this bomb site. Aside from a couple players by some stairwells, there's nobody up by that second floor.
Oh. So good steps for SSG to win those final 2 rounds. It only cost you your timeout and the lead at the start of this first half, but sometimes teams take time to wake up. Maybe that's the case for Space Station. Laundry Supply is going to be the best look that we see for them, though, I'm certain, just because of the way this bomb site works. And right now, it's the only bomb site that's been played that has a 100% defender win rate. Wow. Well, no, I mean in this game.
I was like,
not in general.
You said that. You said that. I was like, what?
I'm talking about. I blew your mind. How many? How many was it? Quiet down, son.
These Grimby's just so annoying.
A nuisance op on attack. We talk about the nuisance ops on defense, but I don't think we shine a big enough light on some of these nuisance ops on attack. Jokobi is definitely in there. Fink is in there. Lions in there. Grim is definitely one of them.
I mean, look, this used to be such a key play to get aggressive on a basement defense, and he's being spotted the entire time. Fulton, to be fair, is just sitting there. He's kind of saying, I have a shotgun, come and push me. Oda instead says, all right, you know what else this player usually has? Somebody to play the long angle, to provide him some backup. And so he rotates around and gets the first kill for Bliss. That's a really smart play from Oda, and Fulta still playing up aggressively. He falls to J90, who rotates and plays that long angle in turn. This is Zombie completely shutting Fisho Guy and the laundry push from Bliss out of the bomb site. Sejiani was covering the Capital, rotates away. Right now, the push for Bliss is very, very uncertain. Starting to get echoes of SSG on that first half. Everybody by themselves. Nobody whatsoever.
Time is the big issue here. 20 seconds left. There's still 8 people alive. This is one of the slowest rounds that we've seen on Oregon in a long, long time.
What? He just dropped down and shot Fulton Ashen in the back. Pushes up further as Forrest finds one. J90 thrown behind the smoke, gets 3 for his troubles. Fisho Guy now pushing up just to try and salvage the round. Goodwill and good plays of Sejion and Bliss go unrewarded. SSG take their first round on the defense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if SSG gets a lot of credit for that one. I think that's very much a Bliss beating themselves kind of round. You know, it's one thing to just sit there on defense. That's the whole point. It's another thing to sit there on offense because you're probably going to lose. So when you're on attack, you got to take up map control quickly, drone them out, figure out where they are, and then work together. Cohesion between these players was very limited from Bliss. Say what you will about Space Station, but so far they have looked like a full team on all of their attacks. Through a single round of attacking for Bliss, they've had a bad start with that team cohesion. On defense, they were great. It's easier to be together on defense than it is to work together on attack. You cannot rely on one player dropping through a hatch amidst the calamity of a round to get 2 kills. Because even though you get those kills, what happened? You needed a 3rd kill to get control of Freezer. Because J90 thwarts the entire thing by lying prone in the smoke. In a way, the smoke actually helped J90. If you hadn't smoked that Freezer door, Yeah, you lose control of pillar if they've got it on SSG's side, but if somebody's playing freezer door, you're doomed because you're not going to know to engage on them, and they're just going to lay down or go outside of the door, wait for the smoke to clear, and re-engage.
And to the lack of initiative, Grim can be very annoying when used properly on this bomb site because of how confined it can be. Small hallways, small rooms, tight angles. But 4 of those Bs were used just to spot Foltz on bottom freezer, and not only did he not move or feel scared by that, there was barely any follow-up to push him back off that intel. So Bliss stalling out, not capitalizing the opportunities that they themselves were creating, achieving an attack that could have been quite a bit stronger. There was one player from SSG, though, that is pushed very far forward and almost indeed does die very early on. Normally we'll see teams fully focus on T3 to try and throw grenades on that rafters or try to throw flashes and repel in, but this time they make Foltz uncomfortable, and Brendo, who's been showing quite a lot of creativity, drops down to the bottom window as Foltz is rotating across the northern side. Cuts him down for the opening pick, so what could be a position that wastes a lot of time for the attack is dealt with in 45 seconds.
Ashen playing in small tower with those castle barricades, oh my, could have potentially surprised Bliss. The drone gets shot out by Ashen. Ashen didn't actually let the drone skate by. I'm not sure if they would have had the information on him, but Gone 6 comes out, he loses one of those castle barricades and realizes that the jig is effectively up at this point. Worried about the Dokkaebi, obviously. Worried about Foltz dying and getting access to cams. That's why you saw him shoot out the own default cam. He's the Dokkaebi hacks it. Is there something you wanted to add?
I was about to say, Bliss need that intel, though, because they're down to 2 drones. Need those default cameras, need those Dokkaebi calls. Ashen domes Brendo outside small tower, but Bliss hold on to that advantage. Visual guy wrapping around to try to take the castle out inside of cafeteria. Looking for a pinch, firing towards Ashen. He spots one, but cut down through the soft wall. Excellent recovery from Bliss, as Ashen could have been the thorn in their side to give SSG enough time on the site to set up. But now with Attic open, in a 4v2, Bliss seeming to be in good hands. Extra intel on Hot and Cold's position. He needs to shut down Wedables, pushing up Attic. Spots it for just a second, but no bullet collides with the Grim. Janino just spots the player white and dies from behind instead. Great recovery from Bliss, and one that came far quicker than SSG even managed to do on their attack.
Yeah, those last 3 engagements that we saw from Spacestation were all done relatively blind. Spacestation just decided to take those fights maybe a bit ill-advised and lost every single one of them. And sometimes when you have a team that just wants... Yeah, I'm a bit shocked by this one. But Spacestation losing 3 gunfights in a row is quite rare, frankly. This is a team of good gunners, and to be overpowered in the most crucial moment of a round is unheard of. I actually quite like this timeout by Bliss, because they obviously have seen things through 2 rounds that they don't like about their attack. And it's also entirely possible that strategy-wise, Bliss saw that round playing out and thought they would lose it until they win the gunfight against Hot and Cold and they win that final gunfight over at top of White Stairs. Because if those 2 things don't happen, it completely changes the course of the round. And what utility have you expended to do that? Absolutely nothing. Grim dry peeking an angle inside of Attic and then dry peeking an angle atop of White is not something that any other operator can't do. They're all going to be able to do it. The only operator that could potentially stop a dry peek is a Blackbeard. It would be crazy if one showed up on our screen. So, who knows?
Hold on. We got like 25 seconds left till he's locked in. We've actually seen Blackbeard a couple times. Saw him on Skyscraper once.
We saw him on this map 2 days ago. I'm trying to remember what team it was. I think it might have been the W7M match.
I know the Skyscraper game was... Oh, I remember. So, well, the one I'm talking about, I don't know about the W7M match. On Skyscraper, Alamau brought it to hold the karaoke window. And I also remember... It's a Brazilian team. I don't remember who, but somebody was playing Blackbeard outside on Armory Balcony on border. Oh, it was FaZe. Wait, it was FaZe against SSG. His Souls was playing outside of the CCTV window to try and fight the Azami, and Ashen just kept shooting him in the back. Wasn't great. But Blackbeard outside karaoke window was good, so not the same map, but Blackbeard has had some okay moments. I'm sad we didn't see him. Instead, it's a much more standard lineup for Bliss. I know, as SSG go back to the dorms bomb site, just as I'm sure they took that tactical timeout to rethink some of their strategies. Public enemy number 1 in this one, don't have someone in T3. Bliss clearly know how to deal with it. Instead, they have somebody all the way down below in basement, and the rest are generally speaking around the bomb site or directly supporting it. Though, you have somebody inside a small tower and cafeteria, which Jay and I know is playing right now, where Wedibles just propelled up to.
If you're going to play in T3, having a Wamai is almost always a necessity. That's an operator that's absent from SSG's lineup right now, so just completely forego that entire part of the map. Go back to dorms. It's actually the first time in this matchup that we've seen back-to-back bomb sites emerge. I love the anti-flank that's being brought by Bliss. Both Gridlock and Nomad are not necessarily employed solely as anti-flank anymore. There are times where you'll see a Gridlock huck those track stingers into the bomb site. Speaking of in the bomb site, Sage runs in the bomb site and then immediately gets killed by SSG.
Oh, just a brutal loss. Z-ping and the pre-fire, and he still loses the fight. Oda goes down too. A lot of unrealized potential for Bliss in round 9. They know someone, again, is to the hard right or our left of that double dorms window. But what are they to do in a 3v5 full clearing that setup on the top floor? Or just even finding an opening at this point seems so difficult. There was that one roamer earlier, hot and cold, likely still down below. Yes, indeed, on Freezer's stairs. But even if you concentrate on him and get a kill, at best you get a 3v4, and he'll probably waste 40 seconds. SSG need to start giving away picks for Bliss to have a chance, and they find one, but he's quickly traded out. Forrest still sitting behind the couch. Fisho guy has no idea of this position. Excellent pre-fire, but there he hops up. Doesn't get the kill, though. Finally secured, or at least downed on the floor. He pulls out the shotgun to fight Wedibles. All right, just gives the game away on the generator position, and Wedibles does have intel. The player playing further inside of dorms can land the shots, but not secure the kill. Might be back-to-back sites, but not back-to-back rounds for Bliss, as SSG still the winners on this defensive half so far.
Wedibles was playing inside a trophy right when we saw Fisho guy at that breach in closet, and Wedibles' job was to essentially stop a rotate from happening. They didn't suspect that there would be somebody playing that cheeky angle by the couch. Now, if Wedibles had stepped up a little bit, neither player from SSG was actively watching trophy door. So he could have walked up, killed Forrest. Yeah, immediately one's going to pivot. The first shot that we saw came from the top of White Stairs. But that's really the only way that you can stop Forrest from killing your players here, right? Just a bit of a sloppy execute from Bliss, and Space Station play it pitch perfect. Just sit, just wait. You know that they're coming from at least that breach direction, so play farther back, play by big window, play by White Stairs, play by the dorms door, and they're just going to walk right into you. And if you need to rotate, yeah, you have to make sure nobody's at trophy. That's when you take the direct engagement with Wedibles. And if you are going to rotate, you got somebody at White Stairs to ensure it's not going to happen.
Bliss have at least maintained their lead by picking up that round on the attack on dorms earlier, so as they move back down to basement and lose this one, it'll be tied up fairly late into the game. Both teams have shown some good signs so far, and Bliss will show another one of those cheeky operators we talked about Forrest earlier, the Blitz on basement, a classic operator. At SSG, as you saw with Forrest last round, they are famous for their rat angles, and Hot and Cold is peeking the smallest hole you've ever seen inside of the sandbags.
This is going to get patched. They're going to be like, no, this is not allowed.
This is not... Oh!
There's almost zero counterplay here.
He honestly might get a kill here. He only sees his legs. Fisho guy also getting damaged, I believe, from either split or classroom to draw attention away from Hot and Cold, but Hot and Cold finally droned. He'll fall off the sandbag position. Instead, move down the laundry stairs. Ashen all the way on the top floor. Very heavy roam setup from SSG. They do like their castles. They like their extensions to play aggressive and get rotations back. But if Oda or somebody slips through, how much will it matter when the castle's reloading? But he gets off completely with the rotation. Moves back down to the bomb site with only a little bit of damage done.
I believe this is the first Flores that we're seeing as well in this matchup, which great timing and, as you pointed out, a great bomb site to bring him on. You want to attack that laundry supply downstairs. Yeah, the Flores is probably the best operator for you to be able to tackle that. So kudos to Bliss for making that change, but you haven't cleared out the top floor at all yet. That's Oda's job as he creeps right up. Oh! Pre-firing, there's a shotgun from Ashen leveled at him, and Ashen puzzlingly losing that first engagement.
A very early pre-fire from Oda. That, if Ashen had hit that shot, would have easily gave away his position and secured the opening kill for SSG, but first pump misses, and Oda's able to recover after that. Smoke grenades go down, essentially to cover the blitzes. Push up Freezer hallway, yes indeed. He is not going for the full execute yet, but it's just to get him into position. Hopefully the default cam didn't spot him. Grimbees push the castle back. Wedables taking control fully of the freezer hallway. The rest of his team needs to start joining him. The Blitz can't do this completely with smoke canisters cutting off his path into the bomb site proper. Brendo will join him inside a pillar, and while one falls from Bliss, they're still holding the lead. Fisho guy with the map holes inside. The castle spots him, but domes him through those very holes. With Wedables now on low HP and the smoke canisters still stopping him from pushing forward. Bliss had the opportunity. They had the momentum. Now Brendo's got to be the one to save it. One kill is not enough to get the victory. Sagion now in the 1v2 has to push up, throws the flashes and peeks to the left, but the two brows are cutting off the rotation. SSG have accounted for this. He has to get the kill, but J9 know one pump from the super shorty ties the game 5-5.
Actually astonishing that the Maverick gets killed in that engagement. I mean, you knew somebody was playing inside a closet. You knew it. You tried to pre-fire. You still lost it. And just these gunfights are ultimately getting away from Bliss time and time again. When you've got a shield on the board, so often you need to get in relatively quickly, right? The fewer players you have on your team, typically the less value that a shield has. Additionally, the fewer players on their team, the stronger a shield will get. Because if it's a Monty in a 1v1, the Monty's going to win more often than not. If there's 3 of you left, 3 defenders left, and a Blitz and somebody else left, that's still a winnable fight, but your odds aren't looking very good, especially if you're having trouble with hard destruction, which it looked like Bliss did. There are few things worse, speaking of hard destruction, than your team executing and dying all over the map while your Maverick is playing art on the wall. So you're like, why are you not in? What are you doing? Why are you sitting in blue right now? Be a little bit faster to the punch. Honestly, I don't think that was that big of an issue for Bliss, but losing that engagement is a tough one. And then because not only losing that engagement means that you cannot gain control of that closet and then the rotate into laundry, but it's also that now you've lost the Maverick, and any instance of split pushing that you thought was going to happen is now effectively gone. It's going to be a linear take from Freezer. SSG can anticipate that and fight back.
It was overall just such a coin flip round from Bliss. I'm sure we saw Oda win the fight top white with Ashen, but again, how long he pre-fired, if Ashen hits that shot, opening kill goes SSG's way. It's just happenstance in a 50-50 that makes it the other way. But vice versa, like you just brought up the Maverick, Ashen spots it in about half a second in time, gets the kill, and that suddenly swings the round back in SSG's favor. The ways Bliss were finding ways into that round were extremely 50-50, relying on individual gunfights, pave the way to success against SSG, who, as I'm sure all of you know, are expert gunners when they need to be. Gonna be difficult, but Bliss going for the rush. Send it into Green Hall as the kitchen bomb side is relatively clear, but Sagion on the Ash falls to one of the players from SSG. Traded quickly back as Wedables makes his way all the way up to the split hallway. Finds an impact, and the shield reveals his feet. Falls, and SSG still hold the lead. A failed rush from Bliss to deny match point for SSG. While there's some control gain, neither attacker is close by. And it's just Oda, trapped inside of Attic, to stop SSG from winning round 11.
Puzzled as what's going on with these teams. I mean, look on the right-hand side of your screen. No mute. No Mozzie. No observation blockers. Where are your drones? Bliss has been having the same struggles with Spacestation regarding drones. Solus is banned. Mozzie's not being played. Mute's not being played. There's no observation blockers. Other than just getting your drones into the Lion's Den and then getting shot by the defenders, there's really no other way to stop these drones from getting shot at. And it's so baffling because information is so critical. You bring a Lion, you bring a Dokkaebi, and you're still losing the intel game. I mean, it's just, that's a damning statement for these attacking teams. And it's not even just a Bliss issue, but right now, obviously, they're the ones under the microscope. And Spacestation are going to have all the info in the world they need from a yokai. They know Oda's now inside of Kitchen. He's got a small rotate to go through. Spacestation won't actively hold that. They know they've got diffuser control by the sandbags, just by stage. Yokai is still there. All it's going to take is one player to swing, and there's Ashen to do that with a Supernova in the hands of the Echo. Map point for Spacestation on their own map, and believe it or not, it's the first time that SSG's led this map all day.
That's unfortunate for Bliss, who, after SSG's victory over FaZe yesterday, if you were able to get such a strong win on your opponent's map pick, this group just would continue to devolve into chaos at who's better than who could get first by the end. But it's ending up being another really close affair for Bliss and an overall solid performance. but still a map that they let get away from them. It's not over yet. They just need to win one round and they can bring it to overtime. And SSG are going back to dorms, the very bomb site that Bliss won. Sure, not both times SSG played it, but still the one time Bliss truly had some success on this attacking half. Something that you couldn't really take away from them. The one round they got in their column. How are they going to change it? 2 rounds now. They've tried to rely on fast blitz pushes. One just execute with a blitz, but the second time a full-on rush into Green Hall that seemed like it acquired quite a bit of control. The blitz worked his way through kitchen all the way up the split, but no bomb went down, no man advantage was acquired, and the control quickly evaporated as SSG retook the bomb site. So what are they going to do here? Wedables is bringing the Amaru in. While it might not be a rush, that again indicates to me that Bliss are trying to go for a quick execute to catch SSG off guard whenever it occurs. And if that's where we're getting to, the bag of tricks for Bliss might really not be that deep.
Apologies for the Stokes bleed through. I'm going to be casting with him later today, so he's going to be bleeding through my own headset, I'm almost certain. And this is what you deal with on a daily basis from him.
Everyone says I'm the loud one.
You're the loud one in social settings.
Perhaps.
He's the loud one in professional settings.
I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Even though we are technically called shoutcasters, he really lives up to that billing.
It says shout, caster.
Tubrow being brought yet again, this time by Hot and Cold. He did it, I think, in the previous round. He was on Tubrow too. It might have been 2 rounds ago. Two rounds ago. Two rounds or 2 rounds ago. Of course. I'm going to keep a keen eye on whether or not Bliss is able to use these drones effectively. Brendo is being droned right in towards White Stairs. Not a single drone has been lost from Bliss yet, and we're at the halfway point of the round. I spoke too soon. They've just lost one right now. They've also got a Dokkaebi. So not just information that'll come from these drones, but additionally from the gadgetry. They could bring the Lion again if they felt it was particularly effective. And even though it seems quite silly, there's also a Jackal if you feel like the roam is too much.
Oh?
Brendo starts things off by picking off Ashen. That's exactly what Bliss needs. And it's only the second time in the last, well, third time this half, second time in the last couple of rounds that Bliss has been able to get that first pick uncontested.
Comes very late, though. Very late in the game. They've not opened up that meeting wall. It's been reinforced off by SSG. Wedable sends his way into Attic, but takes most of his HP to do so. No trade even acquired onto Hot and Cold as he pieces up both with the AR-15. Brendo shut out onto White Stairs, trapped by both the Kiba barrier and the Zoto canister. He can barely see the tip of Hot and Cold's AR. He just can't do it because of the gadgetry in his way. Bolts takes down Fisho Guy as well. Brendo with 3 to suddenly bring them back into contention, but he falls for his efforts. Seiji on his info on 1. They're both on that dorm side. He needs to get both. They both line up, but the opportunity passes, and they swing around the corner and take the map 7-5. And all I'm thinking by the end, what could have happened for Bliss? What could have happened with that 5-3 or that 4-2 half? It might be their map pick, and SSG might win. But man, oh man, another close call for Bliss.
Yeah, I mean, Bliss is getting so close to the goal that they have of winning, and they just ultimately come up short. Look. Oh, I guess you can't see it on your screen. We have the information in front of us. But Bliss's numbers, well spread out kills across that whole team. It was quite top heavy for SSG, with J9O leading the way. Big issue and the big deficiency here, intel for both of these teams. Order is going to be chaotic. I'm going to love to watch it.
I'll love to watch it too, and that is Bliss's pick. So if you're an Aussie fan, there's still hope left on map 2 right after this. if you were hoping for a Bliss 2-0, I'm sorry, my friends. You will have to wait at least another map to see if they can manage a victory. I am Lynx, joined by my father, Parker and Taro, my Kai.
Hello.
Hello. And as you'll see in these replays, Bliss looked quite good on their defensive half, going up 4-0 to start, and after the side swap and some shenanigans, had a 5-3 lead. What happened after that?
They lost.
Okay,
Seconds left.
how much?
7-5.
7-5. Ooh, you know what I just realized?
Which means SSG won.
That game was kind of like a palindrome, because it started with 4 rounds in a row from Bliss and ended with 4 rounds in a row from SSG.
It was 4 rounds Bliss, SSG 3 rounds, Bliss wins 1, SSG grabs momentum. And really it just comes down to, in terms of numbers, what we expect to see at this current point in time in the game of Rainbow Six Siege. The defense have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to what they can do onto the attackers. This has already been, for the most part, a defender-sided game ever since the game came out, but it's really egregious at the moment. I think the number that we highlighted was something like 70% of all rounds or something like that have been won in favor of the defense. What would you believe it? Spacestation won 2 attacking rounds, Bliss won a single attacking round, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, and I think on the defense, you have a lot of ops that can bail you out of situations or make the defense just intrinsically far better. Azami, Solos, Fenrir, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm going to say. But for the attack, both of these teams, it wasn't necessarily those ops that were completely shutting them out, but both teams were quite slow, at times quite uncoordinated. SSG, especially on their attacking half, sure, they won 2, which ended up making the difference, but those other 4 really did not look that great, and in no small part, their efforts were bolstered by a great performance from J90, many consider to be one of, if not the standout player on this roster, whereas on the side of Bliss, it's actually a remarkably consistent performance, but not enough to get them over the line.
Yeah, obviously Wedables had a game probably below his own expectations, but at the same time, Spacestation has these games too. You know, like we've seen games where J90 will drop 2-3 kills. We'll see Forrest play a game where he goes 2-9 and makes a series of baffling decisions. Hot and Cold just seems allergic to taking engagements. So it's possible that SSG has some bad performers. It's very fortunate that in the matchup, everybody showed up. Oregon should be relatively familiar territory for this SSG squad. Now we turn our attention, though, to Border. This map plays out completely differently from Oregon. Oregon is going to be, in many ways, far more structured, far slower. Border's a more open map. You've got that huge lobby area that's influential on pretty much every single bomb site. You can rotate relatively quickly. The roamers don't have a lot of places to go when they're playing upstairs unless they open the hatches, and if you lose that map control, you concede that hatch to your adversaries, which obviously isn't ideal. Haven't really seen much movement in terms of the social prediction. SSG's still the favorite if that number carries over. And it does end up being, you know, like a prognostication of sorts. Then SSG will prevail 2-0 and keep this group quite competitive, with Wolves being at the top at the moment.
On that point of SSG potentially prevailing in this series 2-0, I understand the pick from Bliss. Maybe you're more inexperienced team. Maybe you feel that you can harness your mechanical skill or individual ability, and especially on a map like Border, where an individual position being won or lost could completely turn the tables for a round and who could end up winning or losing it. I get the pick. Problem is, SG beat FaZe on this map yesterday in regulation. This is also a map that this new iteration of SSG love quite a bit. So I don't doubt that it might be a good pick for Bliss, and it might be a comfort pick even, but this is equally, if not more so, for SSG, especially after that huge win over FaZe yesterday. That was the more dominant scoreline in that series, 7-5 on Border versus 8-6 on Cafe. As the ban phase transpires, I doubt there are many surprises to anybody watching. Valk, Solus, who can enable a lot of that aggression on Border, will be taken down. Ying, one of the most banned operators over the course of the year, as you pointed out, and Monty, a shield operator who was banned last time. This means that Azami will be on the board, who's another extremely common pick on Border to play in CCTV. A lot of operator picks that I imagine aren't really going to surprise us throughout the majority of this map.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
No. Valkyrie obviously has far more prevalence here. I was actually quite surprised with how little Valkyrie we saw in Oregon, but that really just comes down to, I guess, team adaptation. In certain regions, Brazil obviously being the most notable, love to run Valkyrie on pretty much every map that's available on. She's available on, including Oregon. But if you've got other ways to gain intel, or you're more importantly, your opponents are just simply not gaining any intel, which was really the case for the last matchup, then you don't need to bring her. That's the only real change here. Fenrir being brought immediately and this is the first round that Fender has been available so far in this matchup, doesn't really surprise me.
5 seconds left.
One thing that Border has that goes kind of against the open nature of the map is that there's lots of very small doorways or hallways with things around it that you can really easily hide those mines in and gain great value from. Now, if you're not bringing in IQ or you're not particularly proficient at droning, you're going to be punished far more than usual. Given how both of these teams played Oregon and the efficiencies they had in droning, I suspect you're going to see high value from Fender.
Fender and Azami, because you talk about those narrow hallways and doorways. What happens a lot on Border is, as an attacker, if you're moving into a certain part of the map, you have to either commit yourself to a gunfight without the option to back out, as in the case on one side of East Stairs with that long hallway, or you have to commit yourself to a lot of angles, such as peeking that break door. You get peeked from 90, to the right on Courtyard, to the left in CCTV proper. Whereas you have an Azami usually playing in CCTV who can block off a lot of different angles. Now, I say usually, there's nobody from Bliss inside a CCTV,
bizarre.
but they are starting on bathroom tellers. So while you see nobody there, they're not starting in the traditional bomb site of Armory and Archive. Instead, using that Azami on East Stairs. So it might not be the most obvious place to put her, but it is one that Bliss really want to hold to stop a push in from Courtyard. X-Kairos will open up one of the fountain walls very early on, though. And considering that is almost the lynch point of this upstairs hold, it's going to be dangerous to rotate through such a key point of the map.
Frustrating, I think, to squander that map control, but
It's a risk, certainly.
absolutely. We talked about Intel being gamed. Excuse me.
Having this kind of game, huh?
I'm sorry, sir. I was unfamiliar with your game.
Sorry, I was unfamiliar that Hot and Cold was inside of the bomb site with his first kill and SSG's third overall. Brendo with the first one the moment it enters into a 1v5. And it doesn't really matter if he kills those other people on the top floor because the bomb is down. And SG had full control of the bomb site. Can't even get J90 prone, setting himself up ripe for the taking underneath that Kiba barricade. And it simply does not matter. The moment SSG get the control they want, 15 seconds later, max, in the bomb site, round done.
Well, we talked about the sluggishness that both of these teams had back on Oregon. It's certainly not present for that first round, and what an exhilarating start for Space Station. You and I actually talked about this off screen. It's not something that you want to necessarily mention during the match itself, but out of all the 7-5s we've seen, that Oregon was one of the sleepier 7-5s, especially with the explosive potential that both of these teams have. Most significantly, Space Station. That last round that we saw from Space Station is something that they are very capable of doing. They turn on the jets, they're in. Bliss, I would argue, from all that I've watched of their tape over in Australia, are not necessarily that type of team. Obviously, they have explosive potential, but not to the level that SSG just brought. It's nice to see SSG kind of return to form in that regard. And frankly, if you're Bliss, you need to be prepared for it. Now, losing the Azami on the stairs, through a random shot through a barricade from Ashen, who knew somebody was there, but
Didn't know the exact position.
Yeah, that's going to piss you off. You've already lost control of security because you never had it in the first place. You lose control of Top East because you died a random Ashen shot through a barricade.
Act of God.
You ever heard of divine intervention?
Defense is online.
Path of the righteous man.
Do the whole thing right now.
No. Is beset on all sides by the tyranny of faults. Wait, no, I skipped the line. Anyway, bit done.
Something about inequity.
Something inequity and Fugazi.
And I will strike down upon the...
With great vengeance and furious keep a barricade.
Kind of you ever think about how woke that statement is, using words like strike and equity? Like, that's the language of the woke, okay? You ever think about that?
Well, I can tell you, Brendo has to be awake if he's going to hold CCTV, because with Fisher Guys' only support inside a break room, using those Kiba barricades to block off different angles that SSG might take against him is going to be priority number one. Of course, there are no nades from below anymore, so one of the key counters the attack just a couple months ago had to deal with this position aren't available to them. So what's a very natural substitution? Take the buck, go below. Or, as well, send the buck up metal stairs to maybe find a gap that you could exploit to find the Azami from behind, but not if Brendo's anticipating it. He opens the hatch as well, knows that, all right, if that buck's upstairs and I just killed him, odds are there's nobody down below in customs. That's a nade kill onto Oda. Fresh, check that one off on the bingo, because that wasn't on a DBNO, I think. But Bliss certainly down for the count at this point, unless Sagion just decides to bring the round back. I keep trying to set a narrative, Parker, to say this team has the lead, this team's got it now, but as we're switching to secondary revolvers, and the two Bliss brothers, Sagion and Brendo, try to bring the round back, it all boils down to 2 players remaining. Last man standing on SSG, Ashen, knows that Brendo is over inside a CCTV. Ashen effectively has control of the bomb site, but problematically not of the diffuser. Down on the floor, Finka might be able to revive herself, but with Brendo ready and waiting. Bliss in a chaotic round 2 take their first on the defense.
What was Ashen thinking? I mean, he shot the default cam at 90 and then immediately squared up in the wrong direction. You know the Azami is inside of security. You know there's a default rotate underneath that 90 cam every single round for basically every single team, whether there's somebody actively holding that spot or not. Where was Ashen looking? He shoots the default cam and then just kind of stops. I don't know. Other than that, though, this was the play for me of the round. It was Sage inside of inside of the bomb site right there. Immediately taking the pivot on the door and then towards the window. SSG pushed at the same time. So it's not like you can point a finger at them and say, well, they staggered their steps. No. They pushed correctly at the same time. But sometimes you just lose at the hands of an MP5. There's not much you can do. So SSG tried to maintain that quick pace. They didn't get that early pick. Bliss actually got first pick. SSG still very quick. You have Ashen making a puzzling call. You have Forrest making a puzzling call kind of at the top of the stairs maybe. And the one thing that we always have to keep in mind is that maybe he got a call from somebody on the team saying somebody's towards the top east and in fact gets killed by a zombie inside of security. It's too late to pivot.
Yeah, I'm reasonably confident that was a call made by SSG. They said, all right, we're distracting this Azami upstairs. We've been throwing flashes in. She's concerned about us on break door and CC window. You might have a gap on metal stairs since they have the hole open inside of 90. Go for the play. And the Azami, instead of looking forward, just happens to be sprinting and turning around and can react in time. I think that's another case where, just as on Oregon, there were some times where one other path could have very easily happened, but didn't end up manifesting. Fisher guy with the first kill, 2 opening picks in a row for Bliss. The first 3 rounds of the defense, and this time Oda decides to make it 2. Ashen next to fall. Those Grims, well, will no longer be a factor, so you have to work a little bit harder for your intel. And I hate to be this guy, Parker. I really hate to be this guy. But if you had a problem with the drone count before, we are at 2 minutes and 13 seconds left. 4 drones left for SSG.
3 Drones. What is drone in German? Not from Inglourious Basterds. It's Gleiser.
I don't know. I don't know what drone is. I don't know what drone.
You learned to speak Portuguese in like 2 days.
I didn't learn to speak Portuguese. Para Gleiser.
That's true.
He said 3. He said 3 glasses. You say 3 glasses. This is a German 3. I don't know. I'm not German.
A visual component would have really helped you with that one.
Well, instead we're watching Bliss try and capitalize on this 5v3 as our visual component.
Mm-hmm. Again, though, Bliss starting on defense, even if it is border.
Attackers dropped the diffuser.
Don't gotta be Stonewall Jackson, you know you want to be starting on defense. Keep up with the Inglourious Basterds references.
Amen to that. I mean, starting on the defense, you get the benefits of those F-Knots. Fultz just has to send his way, and he doesn't even know where it is. They're just hidden. These weird random spots, and finally finds it.
This is what I said, though, right? You've got all these single doorways, you got these single hallways.
These little nooks and crannies.
Lots of nooks, lots of crannies. Let me tell you. You thought the nooks were bad? Wait until you hear about the second part of that sentence. Crannies out of control.
We got an outbreak of them. SSG looking to pivot in the final minute. Oh, we're not even clear on magnets. Selma ripped out of his hand.
I will say, that's annoying.
That's annoying. That is very annoying.
What kind of rat throws a magnet outside?
I mean, it works out.
Who throws a shoe, honestly?
J9O creeping his way on in, finds one thanks to Fultz, but Bliss still maintaining their lead despite SSG's best efforts. J9O with control of the diffuser and perhaps control of the round as he's killing the only remaining player on the top floor. But Fisher guy down below, as J9O moves into the bomb site, is cut down by the Pulse.
Unbeknownst to him, the Pulse sitting there, literally reading his every move and then capitalizing off of it. An impactless kill that comes out from J9O as he tries to salvage the round. But, yeah, I mean, you pointed it out. The drone economy is in shambles. We are in a drone recession
Listen,
right now. Okay?
there's a great drone depression going on.
Not unlike the UK and Japan announced this morning, we are also in a recession.
Are they actually in a recession?
Yeah, they actually.
I didn't see that.
Well, now you did.
You know who beat the recession allegations? USA! USA! USA!
That's why I put America first, brother.
We're not beating the I didn't have a segue. I was gonna.
That's fine.
It was gonna be how
just like how SSG's not beating Bliss.
That's what I was going to say. That was.
Well, you did have
I was
a segue,
trying
apparently.
to be more creative, but you know.
Are you saying that out? Sorry that my references are too lowbrow for you.
No, hey, shut up.
You put on some goddamn shoes.
I'm barefoot. By the way, if you guys don't know, I am barefoot right now.
You spent pretty much 80% of the day barefoot.
I spent 80% of the break trying to find my shoes because I had lost them in the green room. Could not find them.
5 seconds.
Rate My Feet having, or whatever the website is. I don't know what it's called.
They're all right.
They're having a field day right now.
Lots
of backstage photos of the grippers.
Who let the dogs out? Me. That's who.
It only took 20 years to answer the question, and almost 30 years to answer the question.
I wasn't even born. I wasn't even
Jesus.
born when it was postulated.
You weren't born when 9/11 happened.
I wasn't born when Halo 1 came out.
I feel like 9/11 is more significant than the release of Halo 1.
Well, I think Teller's Bathroom, for the second attempt by Bliss, could be where they widen their lead to 3-1. We saw before that CCTV wasn't much of a priority for Bliss, and SSG punished them for it, flooding in to CCTV the moment they realized that control was ceded. But Sejion now is looking a bit more interested in it, Parker. He sees some free real estate and he says, I like this. I like what I'm seeing here.
There's a pool in the back.
All right. My client doesn't like jail. That's why he reinforced it off.
Well, significantly better information from SSG to this point. And one thing that I kind of wagged my finger at with Spacestation on Oregon was a lack of explosives. They're doing the same thing here, but they have tripled up on hard breach, and they get the very first pick as well. The Kaid is off of the board.
Somebody's got to stop Ashen from shooting through walls and killing people. It's really excessive.
You know, I think that a great change for the game would be that there should be no bullet pen whatsoever. We already got rid of the bullet holes. We should get rid of one-shot headshot.
I don't think Ashen thinks the game can change.
Maybe we should. Maybe we should get rid of ADSing as well. You know, I just think that it's ripe for change here. I think we could really be.
There's a lot of
good.
A lot of untapped potential, both in this game, but also in SSG's attack, because they have flooded into control of Passport, whereas Oda's just around the corner. This is a very strong position for SSG to take. They only have a minute left, though. SSG, beyond that very quick control, are really lacking. Bliss might have vacated the top floor, but if they, being SSG, want to go for that push in through Courtyard, they need to cut down Oda, and likely Sejion as well, and that's not even starting with Official Guy on the site. Bolt is still face-checking the top floor with 45 seconds left, so this execute might be 20 seconds away, Parker, and they haven't even opened this wall yet.
9 players still alive with 40 seconds left is very, very odd, but honestly, credit to Fisho Guy. Every single time you bring this Azami, and every time SSG fails to bring anything to tackle these Kiba barriers, your value towards the execute is going to be huge. Still, SSG is finding kills.
Making good progress, even if it's low on time. A 5v3 through Vulcan packs might just be possible if you can get the right angles on the defenders. JNNO watching the rotation between ventilation and bathroom, spotted one for a second, said it's Brendo to fall. Official Guy has to be the last line of defense, and he falls soon after. W's indeed for SSG, as it's a flawless round on the attack. Might be slow, might be very, very slow. But I guess if you have 5 people who can play the game well and hit their shots, doesn't matter.
Big bounce back from Space Station, and honestly, exactly what they needed to keep things close. 2 rounds on attack for SSG. That's basically your high water mark. Sometimes I wish there was a camera here so that we could see exactly
Attackers need to locate
what
and
we do.
I mean, there is technically a camera here.
He is roughly about 8 feet away from where he's supposed to be sitting.
Okay, for the record, we don't need to sit while we're not on camera.
He doesn't have any shoes on.
That is true.
And his shirt is a plunging V.
Flying V! Flying V!
I feel like that's copyrighted from the qualifier cast. You can't.
Well,
you know,
it's from the Mighty Ducks,
Were you even
actually.
alive when that happened?
I was 4?
That was like 5, 6 years ago.
I just, I'm a late bloomer.
I'm a balloon.
5 seconds left before insertion.
2-2 now, though, Parker. Bliss, SSG tied up.
Attackers
I will say, I mean, we're kind of, it's like 51-49 here, but I would say the Bliss defenses they've won, even if they've had some very close calls, have looked a bit better in the SSG attacks in the aggregate.
Yeah. And that previous round, so if you look at where the Kiba barriers were, plugging the outside component of the box site, you can't vault through the window and get on in. You got Kiba barriers also plugging hard walls, so even if you get some hard destruction done, there's a Kiba barrier on the other side, cutting off lines of sight inside of tellers. Leaving bathroom is really the only place that you can go to. Space Station very adeptly, and I think this is because they had so many drones, read into that and repositioned to just go for gunfights upstairs and then go for a more direct pressure, avoiding the areas that the Azami had created. So as well as the Azami was played by Bliss, I also feel that SSG were even better at reading into that and countering it. Now, Flores was an operator that we talked about back in Oregon about the value that is brought from these explosives. And I like that Space Station is finally bringing explosives to the game, because these explosions, as you just saw, can be so crucial in shaking the defenders off of the positions that they're on. Brendo is actually playing inside of security, so it's not a part of the map that Bliss has decided to give away early. That's a change I like from Bliss. However, with a Flores, SSG has basically countered it and said, okay, you're going to actually hold this part of the map. We're going to bring tools to cut through it and make your life miserable.
And it's indicated by how little Kiba barriers Bliss will have by the end of the round. Brendo, his last one was just placed on the CC window. Fisher by his cover inside a break room falls.
By the way.
Oh, yep. Ashen down on the floor. Now quite alone. Ashen picks himself back up out of the frost mat. Does Brendo anticipate that? The flashbangs go out. Sageon finds Ashen, who had picked himself back up. Brendo much safer inside of CCTV, so long as he keeps track of faults on Armory balcony. He's crept up. There's barbed wire in his way. He's not made sound yet. If Brendo isn't careful and that Kiba barrier breaks, he might falter. Forrest now going for the pinch through break room door. F not triggered. The line will take cover behind that Kiba barrier. Brendo knows that's where they're coming from, but Fultz finally creeps all the way around. Gets the kill he needed, but he's stuck in the barbed wire. Can't vault over the ledge. Oda takes him down. 40 seconds left. Neither side with a solid advantage. Danino still going in. C4 cut down.
Attackers have recovered.
What are Bliss to do? Just hold the line. It's all you need, Sageon with the second. Forrest all alone. A hectic execute mounted for SSG. One that doesn't bear fruit. Forrest stuck pre-firing the position known by Sageon and Lion as well.
15 seconds to go.
15 seconds left. Forrest probing. Nothing found for SSG. Bliss maintain their lead, indicating that they are strong on this pick. SSG still trying their best to mount something successful.
I wonder if Bliss was so aggressive to cut him down at the very end there. I mean, nobody likes being probed. So, excellently done by Bliss. I like the crossfire at the end. They assessed that the push was going to be coming through Office and Fountain, so assemble your forces over in that particular direction. Ultimately, these teams both making some very obvious changes that are big at face value and also very small. So the micro and macro both being done by Bliss and SSG. You go back to that very first round, the very first execute that SSG pulled off against you. You don't have anybody on East except for the Azami who dies early on. You don't have anybody actively playing inside of security. These are two huge parts of the map that you've just given up for free. And I think most teams would agree that you gotta keep somebody inside of security. So what happens? Bliss go back and decide, let's do this again. Let's play somebody in security. They did it in round number 2. They did it now in round number 5. And both times, Bliss ends up prevailing because both attempts to clear out security fall flat by Space Station. And it then starts to cast some doubts on that very first execute. Did Space Station actually read into the round correctly back in round number 1? Or did they get lucky because Bliss had a suboptimal defense? And now Bliss correct the issue. They go 2 for 2 after losing Armory the first time. And because of that, they've gained the lead. Still, SSG are within striking distance of tying this up. A 3-3 first half for Space Station is excellent in this scenario.
4-3 half is workable for both teams, but given how Bliss have managed to stay a step ahead strategically in some of these rounds, it would be excellent, especially on this ventilation defense where we saw Bliss use the pulse down below inside of the bomb site itself, but specifically to help the players defending Armory to know when somebody was on Armory balcony, whether they were pushing, whether they were staying, or if anybody down below, once SSG moved into Armory, could use a C4 to take them down. Bliss have really liked, after round 1, since then, have enjoyed quite a bit extending across the map. Sagion on one side, Bisho Guy on the other. Whether the ops change hands or the players change positions, after that first round, Bliss realized we can't just turtle and hold a couple rooms. Border, you need to at least contest early on quite a bit of space. But with J9O on the upside-down rappel and one shot, almost taking down all of Sagion's health. You'll have to retreat down the east stairs. Wetables does similar damage in turn to Forest. Also put low on the rappel. That's the C4 from Pulse gone, and there's only one remaining for Bliss overall.
Lots of chip damage being done from Bliss, and yesterday in particular, we saw a number of docks get brought out just to deal with the constant aggression that is done and the damage that comes with it. Oda with the leadoff kill onto Ashen. SSG had some trouble with those Capkin traps on Oregon. In fact, Bliss got a single Capkin trap kill from the DVD. SSG needs to make sure they're watching their ankles when they go through these doorways.
Ace.
Goes bad to worse for SSG, as now they've lost Forest too.
Again, it's how this ventilation workshop attack went last time they tried to go into Armory. It was a war for attrition, constantly losing bodies, not making much progress. Now it's all individuals. JNNO, only player remaining for SSG to attack this top floor. Floorboard's being ripped away in front of him. Oda goes for the C4 as he flees out onto the balcony. Dodges it. Doesn't take any damage. Fold spots one. Put down low. Gumine will force him back just a little bit longer. We get to 30 seconds left. Every second of time bought by Bliss's remaining utility will pay dividends by the end, especially with Diffuser. Not in the hands of any SSG player right now. Maybe it's recoverable, maybe it's not, but it's likely coming down to kills as Fultz finds his second. Not only for himself, but for SSG as well. They'll rotate over to vents where there's one player sitting in the hard right corner. This is the Pulse. If he had that scanner out, he could find the intel, but as the flashbang goes in, they're trying to pinch, but Hot and Cold doesn't see him! No! Wetables catches him completely off guard. A very late trade, but one that punishes SSG. Brendo in the 1v1, though. Can JNNO find him in time? So low, they've got the intel, but he doesn't shoot on the floor! Z-ping and red ping showies right there. But once the defender goes prone, it just saves his life. And the 4-2 half for Bliss.
What a thrilling round that was for these teams. And both of them, honestly, a coin flip as to who deserved to win that round more than the other. Obviously, the red ping aiding, but J9O not exactly having full faith in the location of it. First half in the books, both teams managing to strike first. Objective play for SSG did happen, though not all that frequently. Just a single time that we saw the diffuser go down. The other round won by SSG, round won by kills, not by objective play. We've seen a near permanent usage of both the Azami and the Fenrir so far, with Bliss rocking these operators quite heavily on their defensive stat, and now SSG doing the exact same thing. We talked about the Nooks. We even talked about the crannies. So the fact that Hot and Cold brings the Fenrir, you're going to get great value out of that. We got to see it firsthand. I don't expect that's going to slow down. Neither of these teams have built a compulsion to bring an IQ yet because of the gadgetry that's brought by the defense. IQ is more often than not a reactionary choice to what the defenders do. But also, we're noting IQ is one of the best guns in the game right now.
True.
Because of nerfs to existing weapons, the commando used by IQ is pound for pound one of the best weapons in the game.
Problem is, she used to have a monopoly on it. And then not only did they make Grim, they buffed it. So why bring IQ?
Exactly.
No point.
Because for gadget, for electronic, because she's reactionary. It's almost like I said this, but you obviously weren't listening.
Well,
probably too busy thinking about Halo,
no,
which you weren't born for.
No, I was actually really focused on how annoyed I'd be if I was facing SSG's lineup right now.
Right.
Because imagine you're a player, right? Imagine you're, I don't know, let's say your name's a Fisho Guy, something like that. Your name's Fisho Guy. You want to go take a gunfight through a doorway. All right. Oh, well, guess what? There's a Kiva barrier and an F-Not and a zombie standing in your way. Well, that's not good. All right, I'll use my drones to find out the position of J9O playing this.
Wait a minute!
Oh! There's a Mute and a Mozzie?
I'm not going to have any fun this round. And Bliss clearly isn't having any fun, and neither is Brendo.
There's no fun to be found in those nooks.
Not at all. What about the crannies? Can we get a cranny status update? Bliss obviously losing Brendo early is not good. when you're attacking armory, you find a lot of value from that buck. Number one, buck, if you bring the Con 6, great secondary destruction for you. You got the flashbangs as well, or the can opener if you want to bring them. In this particular instance, it was flashes in the pocket of Brendo. He's not going to be able to use them anymore. And there will be far less vertical pressure as well.
What are we doing?
You heard him
Drop the
shooting you.
diffuser.
Oh, not like this.
It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Right now, Bliss, I've lost 3 players and we're only at the halfway part of the round.
Ashen holding CCTV, Foltz holding office. None of SSG's positions have been dealt with. All right, well, hot and cold on his camera in front of the head holes, but he's traded out by Ashen, who, like I just said, in CCTV. Oda goes upstairs. Wow, does not check the Mozzie, but does react, even at the cost of a lot of his HP. Diffuser all the way outside on ventilation window, so he'll need to go for these kills. SSG know he's on metal stairs and have reacted accordingly. Set up a crossfire in 90. He'll try to make his way into Armory itself, which he has done. But SSG accounted for this. They vacated it on purpose. Give him that control. So SSG minimized the potential locations where he could be. They have to fight through him to get to the diffuser. And he doesn't make it past the archives doorway.
Yep. Relatively listless entry from Bliss, and this is the frustration that you have on attack. We talked about it both comedically but also seriously about how do you have any enjoyment when you have to play up against an Azami, a Mute, a Mozzie, a Fenrir. You're just going to have a bad time at this point. And when we wagged our fingers earlier in this game with the lack of information that either of these teams were bringing and the fact that there wasn't a Mute Mozzie being brought every single time, obviously SSG said, why don't we bring them? Now, you try to get ahead of this by bringing operators like Dokkaebi, like Lion. You can bring a Jackal. Even though Jackal is relatively rare on border, you typically see him on the much bigger maps. That's correct. Feet are what Jackal looks at as you gestured towards your feet. Thank you for that. But if you're Dokkaebi, who's the biggest counter to Dokkaebi? Mute, because you just stand in the radius of one of the jammers and suddenly the phone calls silence. Lion doesn't work against you if you're standing in one of them. So you bring these nuisance ops on attack, these global operators on attack, to try and get into the building because you know your drones aren't going to be particularly effective. And where do you go? Now, there's another operator that we haven't really touched on who's excellent at finding information, and that's Yana. But Yana at the moment has such a low pick rate after they nerfed her that I don't necessarily know if she's going to be brought because teams have likely not practiced using her against the composition that SSG is trotting out. Now, good news for you if you're Bliss. It's a completely different lineup for SSG, so it's a completely new day as you attack this Teller's Bathroom bomb site on the side of Bliss.
There might be a Mute, but the explosives might be the bigger name of the game here to destroy those castle barricades that we know SSG love, that they like to use to allow themselves better defenses of the map.
Bliss is bringing more explosives right now at this exact moment than SSG has for almost the entirety of this series. But we've also seen Ash be brought by Bliss a lot. It's obviously a comfortable and stable operator for them.
But given the reduction of the frag grenade's efficacy, operators like Ash, Zofia become far more important. Blitz too, to a certain extent, try to carve their way through the building.
I push my glasses up. Now, given the efficacy on the explosions radius of the grenades, if you triangulate the square of the hypotenuse, you can throw them and kill a player and get rid of the utility.
Well, Oda certainly triangulated Ashen's position and killed the player right there. Opening pick for Team Bliss.
Remember when Yardy said that you were the human personification of the nerd emoji?
I'm not gonna lie, that was a good one.
I'm bringing that to the masses.
That was it wasn't necessary.
All the dozens and dozens of people watching are now going to start using that.
I'm coming to the event like, oh, it's the nerd emoji guy.
I mean, you are wearing a yellow shirt, and as far as I'm aware, that emoji is in fact yellow.
Well, Blitz is certainly yellow, and he's sitting outside Tellers right now, waiting to hop on in, but unfortunately that wall is muted, so they can't quite do it. Bolt just walks up the 90 hallway, and despite the fact that Sejion is watching break door, does end up recovering and getting a double for his troubles. All right, I was going to flame him for not covering the courtyard rotate, but with that two-piece, he's redeemed himself in my eyes. Fisho Guy tanks the damage for the rest of his team, allowing the second-to-last kill for Bliss to come through. All that matters is the final stroke. Forrest rotates back towards the bomb site, cuts down Fisho Guy. Well, there's so many Bliss players inside of Tellers and Bathroom. What more can you do than try your best but not succeed?
Yeah, I mean, Bliss were actually quite fast to get in and start to pressure this SSG team. And there have been a number of gunfights, both in Oregon and now on border, where it seems like SSG second guess themselves. They go to a doorway, they look towards a rotate, they look towards a specific angle where we know there is somebody, and they must have that same idea as well. But then they look away at the last second, and suddenly, oh no! I'm getting shot at from the same angle I was just looking at, and then you flick back over to it, and guess what? You're dead. And funny enough, on border, it's happened quite a number of times over by that, either the break room door or the security rotate, 90 hall, which are all kind of the same area. That's, again, the question you have to ask, are they getting bad intel? Because we can turn around and say, why did you hesitate? Why did you look away? Why do you look at break door into 90 hallway and then look away and then suddenly look back again? What if you just stopped looking in that direction? What would have potentially happened? Oh my God, you probably would have gotten the kill. But you didn't. Is it because there was a call out somebody was top east? Is it because there was a call out somebody towards archives? Or there's somebody who was towards tellers? I don't know.
She's back.
Attackers are heading out
I
to defuse
spoke
the bomb.
her into existence.
Our sweet baby angel.
Yana is back.
I mean, I think she's still decent. I mean, oh no, you can't use the G36. I guess you have to use the ARX, which does like 8 billion damage per shot. And you still have flashbangs, your primary gadget. Still provides intel. I'm not saying she's the best, but I still think she has some options. She's just gone from necessary universal pick to maybe a bit more niche, but still one with some good uses. Rendo even. Been one of the main entries for Bliss time in these international events. We'll move on into customs extremely quickly via the jail wall. You'll stop at the beepers. You don't want to reveal your position just yet. It's only 45 seconds into the round, but he has taken a very crucial bit of control. We saw Bliss last time wanted to go for that courtyard execute, and that's where they moved in from. Denying the position to counter that very execute within the first 30 to 45 seconds. Really great speed and prioritization from Bliss. Oh, they actually might have the execute coming down. At least smoke grenades happening. Sejion trying to find some kills in that window. It seems like they may be going for a rush. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
Yeah, I'm a bit perplexed. I like the vigil play by Ashen as well. We talked about how border is an open map and you can maneuver quite well. Well, vigil is an excellent op to do that because you have that radius around you. All the while this killing is happening, there's a Glaz quarterbacking the plant. Fisho guy gets the diffuser down, gets a pick, dies, and suddenly SSG snaps their fingers. In the post plant, they put in so much work. Ashen is on the diffuser. You have to stop Sage from doing this, and he dies as SSG gets it at the final moment. All hell breaks loose, but SSG might as well be the devil because they revel in it.
Okay, so, all right. 45 seconds.
Okay.
Great stuff so far. Bliss are like, we want customs. We want to go for a rush. Let's just flood into customs and ventilation. Because that's where SG are going to try to rotate. Those are also the spots that could give them the ability to peek us from different angles while we go in for that rush. We're vaulting in through a single window. We're going to need to do this. And they do it really quickly, and I have to give credit to them for that. But then the XU takes a long time, and with 2 smoke grenades at that window, SSG, talking about Phantom Presence like we did earlier, when they see those smoke grenades, they're like, all right, we don't know if there's a Glaz, but let's not start rotating in front of that. Let's play it safe, and odds are they're going to go for an execute very quickly. So even though they don't have ventilation, they don't have customs, they know the execute is going to happen. So once Bliss start vaulting in, they're like, all right, we know what the game is at this point. We know what we need to do. And at that point, it's winning gunfights, which, to be fair, Bliss might have been able to win them, as they did have a lot of valuable positions going their way. But Bliss telegraphed a very quick execute very heavily, despite the small amount of time that round took place over, and gave SSG ample time to react to it.
This is so foul. Hangul is playing Tubaru, not for the gadget, but for the DMR, which happens to have a
1.5?
1.5. Tell me, does there seem to be a correlation to players favoring defenders with 1.5s?
I wouldn't think so.
So you're just lying at this point.
No. I said I wouldn't think so.
Well, it's funny enough because defenders with 1.5s get used all the time. Think about when Wamai had the 1.5. Think about when Warden had the 1.5. Think about how Oryx had the 1.5. When Alibi had the 1.5. They were all brought because long range, you want more magnification. I know the gun people are going to be like, actually, it's not magnification. Technically, it's. I don't care what you think. I'm Canadian. We don't care about guns.
I mean, Brendo certainly does. Ash is the entry. You want that 1.5. You want that fast fire rate. Pretty good damage as well, but maybe carrying in the wrong positions. Another round of bad drone economy for Bliss. 3 drones. 3 drones shot, and nothing gained off of them. Oftentimes, if you're just criticizing a team's drones, you're missing the forest for the trees. Really, if you lose almost all your drones, but you get 2 or 3 kills out of it, then there's a better argument that you spent them well. Think of them as a currency. They give you intel and opportunities to open up the round. But now down to 2 drones and both Dokkaebi calls used, what has been found? Seemingly a pretty even engagement between Oda and Forrest. Just 1 bullet likely missing from Forrest could have instead killed Oda and given SSG the opening pick. What are Bliss gaining for this intel? What are they gaining from this pressure? As Ashen is stuck inside a CCTV, he's got a mirror window to bail him out. We're 2 minutes in, and what are Bliss doing?
I mean, Ashen was in front of the observation blocker there, so they spotted the Azami playing in that corner, and now they have to take the engagement, but Ashen is so ready for that. Guns him down the moment the barrier breaks.
Bliss are back? Hello? How did this happen?
We are so back.
I guess we are. Brendo cuts 1 down below, and if Sejion doesn't get taken down, Bliss might actually have a flawless round somehow by the end of this. And indeed they do.
That's 2 flawless rounds. Back-to-back 1. Now, obviously not back-to-back directly, but when Bliss won round 8, flawless. When Bliss won round 10, flawless. SSG called their timeout before that round was even finished, by the way. We don't usually get a timeout call in our ear, but we got one when there were still players on SSG alive. Obviously, you don't have any other choice but to use it now. Bliss is about to beat you on this map. They're 1 round away. And we talked about how defender-sided all these maps are. And yet, Bliss, 2 rounds through 4 on attack, they are beating the numbers. SSG did the same thing through these rounds on attack. They won rounds 1, they won round 4. Those were the only rounds they got. If you're SSG, you cannot allow Bliss to meet that same pattern that you had, because then you lose. And you go on to map number 3, which is Clubhouse. The most defender-sided map that we have seen, as far as the numbers that I saw were. They might have changed today. Also, most played map, which again might have changed today, depending on the other stream, because obviously we're not able to watch the other stream.
I don't know. I've seen like 8 billion clubhouses this tournament, and that's quite a lot.
That's a lot of Rainbow Six. You've watched in 3 days 8 billion matches.
Well, you see, the reason I've been able to was I retreat into the recesses of my brain, and I just replay clubhouse after clubhouse after clubhouse over and over again. So I've had the benefit of the speed of thought at my side, instead of just the normal, real space-time. But SSG are running out of it. Take their tactical timeout, need to win 2 rounds in a row to bring it to overtime on Bliss's pick. And you expect Bliss to win their own map pick, but given how comfortable of a map we've said this usually is for SSG, not necessarily one, by the way, that they win dominantly 80% of the time, but a map that they win or lose, love, and have consistently played for months now. Might just be more so for Bliss. These rounds might come close. They might be completely swung in a different direction by a small change. The odds are coming up Australia at the moment. Bliss just need 1 more lucky gamble. Take round 11. Oda on that Nook to start out would be the man to find a gap in SSG's defense. Sneak in somewhere. Cut them down from behind. Maybe Fultz with that pulse will find them through the wall. A lot of different ways this could go.
Pulse has been a fixture so far for both of these teams. You saw how much value Bliss was able to get out of the operator, both rounds that we saw him used on vents. Obviously integral for that very final kill, getting information when SSG dropped through the hatch, but also I believe it was Wettables who was tucked into the corner, and it was SSG's inability to coordinate a push at the same time, which allowed him to prosper, and then the crossfire that was set up by his teammates netting the kill. He's got to have a good look at this Tubarao, being able to freeze that passport/security wall, or customs wall technically, right there, but yet still opened up. All it does is just kind of push pause on it. It doesn't really do much beyond that. The ram being brought is Well done, exactly why you see the boogie just cutting right through top of Armory, and it gives some... Okay, that's a choice.
I mean, don't blame it on the moonlight. Blame it on the boogie. Because Force has to rotate out from underneath Armory to dodge the vertical destruction, decides to swing main door as a consequence, and gets
so
the
many
opening
people,
pick.
by the way, that reference is just going to fly over their head, but that is excellent.
Yes.
How long have you been sitting on that one for?
Quite a bit, actually. I've been sitting on that one since Ram came out. By the way, minute left in the round. Bliss again down to 3 drones. Now, it did not prove to be a damaging consequence overall last round. They were still able to win in the end, but their own economy has been low multiple times for Bliss throughout their attacking half, and it consistently applies this pressure to them to win the gunfights they find, especially if they don't have intel. Wedibles doesn't know there's one in library. He's just free-firing and flashing. Maybe he knows somebody's in the area, but with hot and cold right below the hatch, this is the exact kind of play that could catch Bliss completely off guard. We are almost 20 seconds left in a 4v5, and all Bliss have to bring this to their advantage or flashbangs. SSG rotate up the stairs and are able to shut down the plant the moment it's put on the floor. Hot and Cold then rotates back into the bomb site, is able to find another, and puts Brendo in a 1vx. So catches one breakdancing on the floor, maybe, but a 2-piece for J9O is more than enough to close the gap just a little bit for SSG.
Well, things get ugly in the dying moments of a round when you have nothing to do but scramble at this point, and I don't know, 8, 9 operators alive with, what was it, ended up being like 10 seconds, 15 seconds left or something like that. All hell is obviously going to break loose. There obviously was mistakes committed by both teams, but ultimately, if you're the attacking squad, you got to get in with the map control you have and get that diffuser down. It looked like for a moment, SSG was unaware of the fact that the diffuser was being planted. But when you've got information on your side, you got to use it, and that's exactly what they did. The only 2 ways that Bliss push ultimately came from that hatch drop upstairs from Armory and then through the main door, effectively pushing in towards the server component of the bomb site. And it allows SSG's players, especially J9O, who ended up getting those final 2 kills, to play so safely at the back. Now, if you're bringing a Ram, you're going to want to take as much of that safety above them away as possible, whether it be Armory, whether it be upstairs in Archives. You got to tear through that floor. Sage used the Rams boogies quite well, but the focus was very clearly on the workshop, front workshop component, not actually the back of workshop. And that's just a small oversight. That's where SSG had nestled up some of their defenders, and that's where they can strike at you from.
I also really love the call by SSG once they saw the hatch drop to immediately rotate upstairs. And, well, if Bliss struggled to recover from that early loss of Oda in round 11, an even earlier loss of Brendo, their other big entry, not great. Not great start. Both actually, actually 4 different people on Bliss have 8 kills so far. Still, one of technically your top performers, even if he's tied with 3 others, they don't have to worry about. There's a guy now looking to apply pressure outside the CC window, but they decide to drop down. The site is Teller's bathroom, and if you recall before, Bliss, with Brendo, moved into customs and vents at the very beginning of the round. SSG have reacted by placing Foltz and Ashen in positions on 2 different floors to deny that very possibility. Same with Forrest upstairs in Armory. So Bliss's previous strategy, not very viable, and they showed struggles adapting and changing the initial plan they wanted to do in their game yesterday. And now, the drones are again getting low, and nothing is being bought for that expend intel. 3 with over half the round to go. Oda does find one, does get the trade, and with one of those very small remaining bits of utility, takes over half of Ashen's health away with the Z-ping into security, and now acquire that advantage. Sejeon walking up, a C4 and an MP5 bring the advantage back to SSG. Ashen will then fall down, retreat back closer to the bomb site. The Bliss twiddling their thumbs.
This really is just textbook border. You know, there's explosions and then there's calm. As you gain the map control, you fight over it, and then you effectively reset here. I like the way that SSG is currently sitting, not just because of the numbers advantage, but what they have left. You know, where are those F-Nots by Ashen? Are they around the actual bomb site? Because if you've got some still in back pocket, not in terms of like in his pocket, but close enough around the site, then when these last 2 players from Bliss go to push in, it's going to be a miserable experience. And it will allow SSG to not just get information on it, but also punish them on top of it. Fisho guy will have just Sage to watch, and that's it. He'll go for the drop. He's got some safety and security, but it's J90 through a soft wall, looking for kill number 4. Can he find Sage, who's all by himself? No, it's Ashen, who's still above to send us to overtime.
Hits the rotation station for the final kill. Hard to understate the importance of that mid-round for SSG, with Bliss able to fight back and even for a moment make it a 4v3 with very low intel, very shaky control of the map. That's still something workable. They've won rounds at similar odds on Border and Oregon. But instead of falling back and maybe throwing a C4 and missing the intel and the control that SSG did have, make it a 2v3, and now the round is going as it should have. As it should if you have an attacking team that cannot get use out of 8 drones, that can't get control despite sometimes rooms being ceded to them. Bliss are definitely playing, I would say, below the level that I think they are capable of. I don't think they're necessarily tournament favorites or even necessarily dark horses, but going up 6-4, you expect a bit more consistency on your map pick. You expect a bit more control. If this is your pick, why are we seeing the same problem on Oregon where drone after drone after drone is being used and nothing gained from it when you ban Solus? If you're so concerned with your drone economy that you ban, to be fair, one of the best operators in the game to counter the attack's drone economy, how is this still such a substantial issue on your comfort pick in this series?
I mean, it's a great question. It really, really is. SSG, again, bringing a lineup that is absent of explosives, but I don't think it's necessarily worth noting all of the time now as it's bog standard for them, but obviously can have huge impact if you feel like Bliss is bringing deployable shields and Akiba barriers that you struggle to get through, and that's exactly the case. Now, Ashen will skirmish the top of East exactly where he was before. It was the Azami that he was able to take out previously. Brendo lives for now, still patrolling up on the balcony, getting shot from a direction that I don't think he was aware of. I have to imagine it was from J90 above.
J90, maybe Ashen out on the balcony. Actually, hot and cold on the balcony. Thought Ashen the Grim was out there, but he appears to be on his drone instead. J90, though, 28 kills so far between the two maps, doing quite well for himself. The top player for SSG, the only one positive for SSG as well. No small part, one of the big reasons why SSG managed to bring this to overtime in the first place. Good find for J902, the utility as well. Goo mine shot and F not hacked. Might not really help SSG all that much, but it will, well, at least indirectly countering Bliss, but it will allow them to walk through that East Stairs doorway safely. Oda put to 1 HP, joining Brendo in the Damaged Bliss Players Club. Very low health between the two defenders.
It's a popular club these days.
I hear. A lot of new members signing up, specifically from Australia.
Yeah. Back in the day when we saw Finka being brought by the attackers and Thunderbird was used somewhat regularly on defense, she's never had a huge impact on the meta, but was certainly used more than she is now. It was because there was all this chip damage that was done. Bliss just continuing to absorb blows over all of these rounds on defense, and there's no way to really help them, no way to help Sage either, as now he dies to Ashen, and SSG with a minute to go finds the first pick.
Not even one of the two players they damaged in the first minute and a half of the round. It was the third player to suffer damage, this time fatally so. But Oda, very easy kill if SSG can find him. Brendo, less so. And he has that Kiba barrier to bail him out if he wants to hold the position for a little longer. He's still upstairs, I believe, still sitting inside a break room. Because even though Bliss might be taking a lot of damage, SSG, just as with the attacks overall, it seems, are really struggling to mount executes with more than 30 seconds remaining. But they're right close to one. One player outside in the balcony, 2 on vent window, and hot and cold below. This can work, even with low time. There's no warden for Bliss either. So aside from a blind spray, Bliss cannot see through these smokes. 3v5 now if Bliss want to make this comeback. And a very favorable advantage for SSG. Forrest creeps on in, starts planning in the default spot to the right of the door, maybe to dodge some of those blind sprays. And there's nobody from Bliss capable of fighting back. Might be low on time, might be slow, but you can't say that execute from SSG was not, in fact, flawless in planning and execution.
Now, here's where things get real interesting. Bliss have used their timeout. This is the time to do it because SSG has the lead. SSG had the lead back in round number 1. They have not led since then. SSG could presumably win this entire series next round, and they will have spent 95% of this matchup tied or trailing, which is crazy to think about. Go all the way back to Oregon. Bliss won the first 4 rounds. SSG's lead comes in round 11. They win it in round 12, 7-5. Here they win round 1 on Border. They lead that round. They immediately lose the next round, meaning it's tie game, and since then, Bliss has either led or tied for the remainder of the matchup. It's always a crazy statistic when you see like, oh, SSG won the match, but of the, cumulative almost 2 hours that we've been casting at this point, Bliss have been in the driver's seat for 60% of it, and the rest has either been tied or it was SSG very briefly winning, which is just, again, a crazy statistic. SSG won their first attack on overtime. So far, both teams have won 2 rounds on attack during their 6-round stead on both halves.
It's weird, though, because part of me wants to attribute that to, those oppressive operators like Fenrir and Azami.
Impressive, now you're using woke words again.
But these attacks, man, even though SSG did get a really great plan at the end there, it still took 2.5 minutes. At best, these attacks are slow but effective for both teams. At best, these attacks are slow but effective. At worst, they're uncoordinated and unclear what the end goal even is. For Bliss and SSG on Oregon and Border.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's both of these teams have shown off some good skill today, but, I mean, there's a lot of homework that needs to be done by both teams once you're finished this matchup. Now, obviously, SSG has this cushion in the group. All of these teams are currently trailing Wolves. That's who you're chasing. That's who your high water mark is. SSG already played them. Wolves won. So, in that sense, you're not going to have a rematch in the groups here. You're just going to keep going forward. But Bliss have, I would argue, a much harder road for the remainder of the group than SSG does. This is, and I hate to use this term because it's loaded in a lot of ways, but this is a must-win match for Bliss. If they cannot prevail here, I don't have much hope for Bliss from this point forward.
I mean, maybe they can get a win over D plus Kia later as we are starting to get into the latter half of the group stage. There are teams that they could beat, but I would say this is a must-win, not for any statistics or mathematical reasons, but for quality. This was a team that, alongside Fury and Atlanta, in play-ins, really promised a lot, and even though they both went out, they went and lost 8-7 against big teams. Bliss, 2 of them, SSG and Wolves, who are in this group right now. This is a must-win because Bliss can beat them. In fact, they were up 6-5 and almost did, both in Atlanta and here. To lose again at an 8-7 or an 8-6 scoreline when you had a lead is another really frustrating and disappointing blow. Not because it was a bad game, but because we expect and think Bliss really can offer more. But as they lose the opening pick on the Osa, who tried to go for the plant in Archives, what more can you do as the game is collapsing at the seams? Wettables on a late rappel in one fell swoop. SSG brush off their shoulders, win the series 2-0, and send Bliss packing in Bliss's second outing of the groups.
My. Bliss won the last 2 rounds that Bliss won in this map were both flawless. The last 2 rounds that SSG won in this map were both flawless as well. And SSG, as I pointed out, they only captured the lead in round number 13. They were tied or trailing both maps until they got their 6th round, and yet they prevailed. And honestly, you gotta be able to muscle out these victories and stay close. Huge kudos to SSG for maintaining that mental resiliency, staying in the game mentally, staying in the game physically, and ultimately beating the Australian team. APAC has had a rough go of it so far. Fury is the only team that has looked somewhat promising. Outside of that, the rest of APAC has had some very obvious struggles. Bliss is not immune from that. SSG overperforming, I think, some people's expectations of them and showing up as a cohesive unit today on both these maps. Despite making missteps, they win 2-0.
And just looking at these teams' records in theory and looking at these groups, I think the vast majority of people are thinking that this might be a very easy win for SSG and that they should win it in theory. I'm a bit more even-handed than that. I really did come into the series thinking Bliss had a shot at, if not winning it, putting up a really good fight. But with this win for SSG, they might have lost to Wolves, but they beat FaZe Clan yesterday. That, in my opinion, qualitatively cancels out the 2. Sure, you drop a map to Wolves, but a 2-0 to FaZe Clan. SSG at this point, I don't know the exact math, but seem to have solidified themselves in that top 4. Because with that win over FaZe, it seems like a really strong fight between 3 different teams. Wolves, FaZe, and SSG, and Bliss are running out of time to re-enter that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, even FaZe has looked surprisingly weak in some of their matchups. Right now, Wolves and SSG looking like the 2 best teams in the group, which, frankly, with a team that has FaZe Clan in it, is very surprising. I talked to a couple teams before a single match was played, and there was a belief that FaZe Clan was one of the favorites to go all the way. Now, obviously, there's still so much time to go. It's entirely possible that FaZe Clan not just makes playoffs, but also makes a deep run, and they improve as time goes on. But the competition in this group is going to be tough. SSG and Wolves are the real deal. And honestly, today, for SSG, it was the J9O story. 30 kills, dropping 15 on Oregon, 15 on Border. That's the consistency you need. And the whole team on the right side of your screen showed up this particular match. Amazingly, on the left side, Bliss was strikingly even, but nobody was particularly good. Every single player's stats underwater, below 500, and that is nowhere near good enough.
I think in many ways that tells the story for Bliss that individually, these guys are all quite talented. They're
Absolutely.
all very good. Both maps, you had 4 people all close together, and the last guy had 5 kills. But when it came to those attacks, it is 5 talented individuals who, from round to round, were struggling to consistently implement a game plan. They might have had 2 flawlesses, and they might have had 2 great executes. But consistently over the course of a map, let alone a series, it was a struggle. And for SSG, not only was it very slightly better, they also had an unequivocal MVP performance. 30-12 for J9O, as you just mentioned. That might have been the difference maker ultimately. Whereas Bliss had consistency but no standout guy, SSG had that and then some.
Yeah, and when you've got offensive threats like J9O, and even Forrest, who was the worst performing player on that team today, he can take over games. He can be the best player in the lobby. We spoke of what this group looks like, and here you go. Right now, D plus Kia, far and away the lowest performing team in Group B. You got some tough competition, though, if you're Bliss and FaZe Clan, because Spacestation and Wolves have absolutely given reason to tell you that they're the best teams so far in the group. FaZe Clan obviously has the day off today. They'll be back tomorrow, but you got some work to be done if you're the Brazilian squad.
But guess who they're back against? Bliss.
Yep.
Bliss have a really tough road ahead of them. Losing to Wolves, losing to Space Station. I mean, FaZe Clan are certainly looking weaker. There is potential we could see an upset, but it looks ultimately that this group really might be coming down to a fight between D plus Kia and I can still say father and son. That could come down between D plus Kia and Bliss.
Yeah. No, I gotta say, this is a surprise to me. I did not expect FaZe Clan to be where they are at, and even more than that, it's not just about the numbers, it's about how FaZe Clan has played. They have not looked anything close to what we've seen out of them at previous events. That is a shocker on its own. So, but hey, these are the top 20 teams in the world, so you're gonna have matchups that are gonna be close, and you're gonna have some surprises along the way.
And overall, it's FaZe Clan. Come on, it's groups. I'm sure we'll see something good for them, but I believe that's it for us. This series, Bliss lost, unfortunately, but I'm sure we have maybe a highlight, maybe an intelligence play?
Maybe an intel play.
Oh, sorry.
Father.
Yes, indeed. And I'm not shocked. I mean, Brendo with his first kill on defaults, of course, was a really great find at the start of this round. And this was, you said high watermark before, one of the highest points overall for Bliss in that point. We only saw that 1 kill, but the start of that round, able to find Fultz so early on, it transitioned into a 5v3 that they ended up taking the lead. The same can be said on Border, a 5v3, an unrealized lead, unrealized potential in Bliss of day 2 of their group stage. What else is there to say, Parker? What else is there to say except
there's a break.
And we'll see you later.